Today was a dark day in the city of Warren and across the state of Ohio, but one light shined on this day, and that was the decision made by Judge Cynthia Rice to sentence Michael Edwards to nearly 40 years in prison. One of the things that we want to communicate for our client AP, and on behalf of all women who are abused by police, indeed all men who are abused by police, indeed all citizens who are abused by police, we will not stop until there is accountability. We will not stop until the law cuts both ways, both against the citizens and against the police who violate the law. That the law is to be upheld and followed and asserted against all of us equally. And so to the prosecution team and to the good officers involved in this investigation against Michael Edwards, I know AP and the others say thank you. The system worked in this moment, but it's not good enough. We have to do more. Here's a question. How did this repeated dereliction of duty sexual abuser stay in power? How did he keep his job? How did he get employed? What standards do we have in law enforcement today that dictate how it is and when it is that officers get investigated for their actions? What do we know about police today in America who take these jobs? Professional law enforcement begins with the word professional. And it is extremely important that we have professional systems in place to vet these individuals, to make sure that monsters like Michael Edwards do not get in power and abuse their power, as happened here today, as was demonstrated and shown by the judge's verdict today. It's a hard conversation to have in America. Many of us don't want to have it. But that conversation is, how do we make our communities better? How do we make law enforcement better? And the answer is to know who is in power. Demand accountability. Demand clarity. How are your officers being investigated prior to donning the badge? Is Ohio doing enough in its training programs to get to the bottom of psychopathy and sociopathology, which is clearly an issue here today? That man is a psychopath. The convictions prove he is a psychopath wearing a badge. How does a psychopath get in office and power and ruin lives? So it's our hope that as we press forward, and we will press forward for AP, that as we press forward, we get to the bottom of the questions. What did the city know about this man before and while they let him do the work of a police officer and then a monster? It's also our message to unify this community. This is not an opportunity taken only to lay into the city of Warren. This is an opportunity for the city leaders to reach out to us and the victim that we represent, AP, and to talk with us about how to make meaningful change and reform in the areas of mental illness and psych evaluations before officers get employed. And to make sure that they have a duty that they're following to make sure that those officers are in fact being the kinds of officers they're supposed to be, that nobody's looking the other way. We ask for that audience with the city leadership because AP is the person you need to hear from. She has paid the bill. She has paid the cost of this violence, and she will for the rest of her life. And so I want to thank again all of you who have come here today. We look forward to advancing AP's cause as we move forward. Thank you.
Today hopefully starts some healing for AP, some healing for the community. The word courage comes to mind, for AP to have the courage to use her voice to help bring someone to justice. The courage of the jury to find this demon responsible for all the heinous acts. Courage by Judge Rice today, when how ironic is it that a plea by the demon's lawyer to please look out for him, because every day he goes into jail having worn a badge, it puts him in harm's way. How disrespectful is that to everybody he abused? We need to get better. As Bobby pointed out, we need to get better. This is not about tearing down. It's about recognizing everything that went wrong, every minute of every day that demon was allowed to prey on innocent women. This needs to stop. We need to begin the healing. And hopefully, as Bobby just pointed out, hopefully, just hopefully, the city will step forward, recognize accountability and responsibility, and allow us to continue to move forward and make this a better place. Thank you.
Yes. Well, right now the movement is towards understanding how it was that Michael Edwards could do this over a period of time, understanding what it was that the agency knew of Michael Edwards or feared about him. So we have an investigative phase that we go through, a data collection phase that's post-verdict, and that's important because once the verdict happens, people start to talk, right? They start to share more information, and so we expect, as we have gotten information, that we will get more. And whether this goes into the direction of a courtroom is completely, and I must say this, it is completely up to the city. It is completely up to them because AP, I mean, do you know, she said she prayed for Michael today. If ever there was hope in the human spirit, that was it. She was violated in her essential female self. And she had the character and the courage, as Ken pointed out, to actually offer something to God for him. So, we will offer this to the city. You hold the cards as to whether or not this case goes to trial or goes to a lawsuit or not. It should never result in a lawsuit. This should result in a community response led by you, the city of Warren, led by you to make meaningful change and to assure the citizens of Warren that their police department is safe. That's the most important thing.
So you want reform?
We want, absolutely, and it begins with every police officer in Ohio should carry their own insurance. It's absolutely ridiculous that we call them professional law enforcement officers and they don't have to be insured. What profession does that? There needs to be mental health evaluations of officers throughout their career, both on the way in, during, and on the way out, because they deal with so much misery. And they themselves become miserable. And sometimes, as we've seen here, monstrous. So we need more safeguards. And finally, we need our communities to recognize that while it's true they're not social workers, police officers are not social workers, they're also not above the law. And so we're grateful today that Judge Rice's verdict says that.
So do you want like an in-person conversation?
With, yes. Yes, an in-person conversation, yes, with us and the city leadership, the chief, the mayor, the folks who make these decisions. Let's come together and solve this problem. We would love to stand side by side and say, look what we've done together to make it better since AP and the others were hurt. Absolutely.
So what would, I guess, push you to file a lawsuit in this case? Or...
It's very simple. If the city ignores AP, if the city disregards her, that would be a mistake. So in my career, I'm always looking for the bad apples. That's what I eat, bad apples. I love bad apples. That's what I want to do all the time. I always want to find bad apples because there are so many good apples. And yet, those good apples sometimes turn a blind eye to what the bad apples do. And I don't blame them for that because that's a system that we have all created and allowed. So what I want to see is a system of policies in place that allow good apples to tell on the bad apples. And that's up to city leadership to create. And they can do it. They can do it. But the courage to do it is what's been lacking so far.
In this lawsuit, will your client ask for any monetary value?
At the appropriate time, we'll address anything like that. The thing is, and it's so easy for us to turn this into a conversation about financial retribution. We're not there. We're not. I just saw by the way, I was standing next to her and her whole body was shaking. I don't know if you could see that from where you were standing. Her hands were shaking so much she couldn't read the paper. I had to hold her forearm still. What she just went through will echo and reverberate in her for a while. So I want to be respectful of that. We all do, as well as for all the others who've suffered. So this is not about that. It's about restoring the dignity and restoring the community's faith in this department. And the department and the city leadership carry a tremendous burden. And I don't value their contributions less than ours. In fact, I say they've got, I think, a harder job sometimes because they have to come into an understanding of how they're not doing good enough for the city. Anybody else? Okay, thank you all so very much.